All right. Hello, everyone. Hi. So, the current session is staying happy and mentally strong while creating content. Shamal Wallabji is a South African born sports scientist, a psychologist, entrepreneur, a monk, and a high performance coach. He is the best selling author of 4 books, a TEDx speaker, a Inc. Fellow, Men's Health Trainer of the Year, and Asia's Past Wellness Guru of the year 2019. He has spent 2 decades working with professional athletes, champions. He has worked with India and South Africa cricket teams, Davis Cup teams, and Olympic teams. Shamal has featured as an expert on 4 National Geographic documents. And today, as an expert in the field, he is going to talk about mindfulness, especially in the context of COVID, the kind of pressure that all the creators are going through, and what measures we can take to identify the symptoms and how to handle the situations better. I would like to welcome Shamalji onto the stage. Shamal? Shamal, are you there? Hey, Shamal. Good to have you.
Hello. Thank you very, very much for having me. I'm super excited to be a part of this session. And to everyone listening, should I go take it over?
Yes, just before that, audience, so this is Shamal will take 20-30 minutes of time to deal with the topic. And in the meantime, you can ask the questions, but we'll deal with the questions at appropriate time. Is that okay, Shamal?
Yeah, that's absolutely perfect. Yeah, we're going to cover a lot of time to answer questions. We're going to make it super interactive. I'm going to try to make it exciting for everyone.
Yeah, the floor is all yours.
So thank you very, very much for inviting me to InfluencerCon 2020. I'm super excited to be here. A little nervous because, I create a little bit of content as well, and you guys are all obviously experts at doing this. And I'm not an expert at creating content. I'm an expert at something else, which is the body and mind. And today, that's actually the topic that I'm going to be talking to you about. I'm going to be talking to you about how to really optimize the body and mind in this current day and age as an influencer or as a content creator. What is a few things that we should be conscious of? How do we look after our own health, our own mental health, our own physical health? And I think it's a topic that we all are aware of. Perhaps we don't put as much awareness as we should. Perhaps we don't make as many changes. But I'm going to give you a little bit of background on what it is. For those of you who don't know who I am and have not heard me speak, my name is Shamal. I'm a sports scientist and I'm a performance psychologist. And I've worked in the capacity of being a high performance coach for the last 2 decades. I've worked with a lot of the cricket teams, the Indian, the South African cricket team. I was at Kings 11 Punjab. I worked with the Kenyan marathon team. I traveled on the ATP tour for 6.5 years, did some work on the PGA tour. And that's my thing. So I've gone to quite a few Olympic Games, Commonwealth Games, and my job is predominantly to optimize performance. Now, let me give you an idea of how exciting my world is. Now, for many of you who are watching, I'm not sure if you're sports lovers in any shape and form. And the beauty about the Olympic Games is that whether you're a sports lover or not, you would tune in once in 4 years to understand what's happening at the Olympic Games. And most people are excited about a few events. For example, if you're a runner, you're excited about the marathon. Even if you don't run at all, everybody's excited about one particular event, which is the 100-meter finals. And if I ask you who won the 100-meter finals at the last Olympics, which was in Rio in 2016, I'm sure a large percentage of you guys would guess correctly. If I ask you who won in London and who won in Beijing in 2008, there's a very, very good chance you would know who won. And if you're guessing Hussein Bolt, you're absolutely correct about that. Now comes an interesting thing. If I ask you who came out second, 99.9% of people will have absolutely no clue who's come out second. Okay. And this is where it gets interesting, and this is where I step in. You see, the difference between 1 and position number 4 in any Olympic event is 0.5%. In the 100-meter finals, 0.5% is 200ths of a second. Now, every time you blink your eye, the speed at which you blink your eye is 300ths of a second. And in 200ths of a second, in the blink of an eye, 4 people would have gone past the finish line in a 100-meter final in Olympic Games. And my job is to close that gap, right? Because the difference between winning and losing is not just a gold and silver medal. It's whether the world will actually know you or not even know who you are. So when you go up to a stage, people will be screaming or people will not even know who you are. So I have a very exciting job. And to bridge that gap, I look at physiology, which is everything that happens in the body. And then I look at psychology, which is everything that happens in the mind. And my approach to psychology, which is what I'm going to talk about a little bit just now, is very, very interesting because I spent almost 4 years living as a monk in a temple. So I bring a lot of mindfulness and a lot of meditation to the way in which I condition the mind. And I'm going to be sharing that. But let's talk about the world that we all are in. We're in the world of content creation. We are influencers. And really and truly, I was excited to speak at this platform because it's a very, very beautiful time to be a content creator. But there's certain expectations that come with that, isn't it? And more than expectations, there's also a lot of responsibilities that come. There's a responsibility to be ethical, to be authentic. There's a responsibility to create content and lead with courage. You know, as an influencer in whatever shape and form, you have to understand, and that's why I actually accepted this invitation to speak, because it was my opportunity to really lay down the message that as influencers, we are not just influencing purchasing decisions, we're influencing behavior and behavioral change in a person. And remember, as a content creator in this day and age, whether you're making content on micro platforms like Instagram and Facebook, or slightly longer format on YouTube, for example, if you're a TikTok star, you know that every single day, for you to get some sort of virality, you have to put about 4 to 5 pieces every single day. I'm learning about this a lot, and your audience are consuming that. Now, here's something that's very interesting. When I give you a piece of information, the change in your brain is a chemical change. Okay, if you listen to the same piece of information for about 7 to 10 days, the change in your brain becomes structural, which means it becomes more permanent. Now, why am I saying this? I'm saying this because the nature of the beast that we work in is such that we're putting content out so often that we are moving our audience very, very quickly from what is a chemical change in the brain to what is a structural change in the brain. And when you're influencing someone's behavior and you're influencing how they think, it comes with a certain level of responsibility. It comes with a certain level of accountability. And those two words is actually the biggest distinguishing difference between some of the best athletes in the world, athletes who I've worked with, and everyone else. That's the single difference between those who are great, okay, and everyone else. What is that difference? The difference is that people who are great accept 100% accountability and responsibility for every thought and action that happens in their life. Okay. And I'm going to break this down a little bit more. And today I was actually only going to speak about 3 things, but I'm going to break down this accountability and responsibility. Okay. What does that mean? You see, there are 2 mindsets that operate in this world. You can either operate from a victim mindset, and that victim mindset means what? It simply means that when things are happening to us, when people are not responding or meeting our expectations, or we are not meeting, we're always looking for excuses. We're always trying to attribute the blame to someone else. We are saying that this hasn't happened and it didn't happen because this person didn't do this, or this person didn't call me, or I wasn't given this opportunity, or I didn't have this piece of equipment. And you can use multiple narratives. That is you being a victim. Okay. The problem with being a victim is that you're completely powerless, right? The reason why you're powerless and the reason why people choose to be a victim is because being a victim makes you innocent. Okay. And we all, every single soul on earth loves to feel innocent. You love to feel that when the chips are against you, when things are not going your way, it wasn't really your fault. It was someone else who did something, or someone did something to you. And that's why you are in this position, right? It makes it easy for us to narrate that story. It makes it easy for us to feel sympathy and get that pity from people. The problem is that mindset renders you powerless. The opposite of that mindset is something, and it's a word that I use from the world of sport, and I call it a player mindset. Now, why do I use the word player? Because the truth is that a player is someone who's playing, who's in the game, and only a player can influence the outcome of a game. Only a player. A person sitting on the bench cannot change the outcome of a game. A person sitting in the stand cannot change the outcome. Only someone who is on the field can change the outcome of a game. So I call it player mindset, where you start seeing yourself as a person who's a player in your own life. You see yourself as that key role player in your own life. And when you see yourself in that position, you give yourself the power to shift the outcome of your life. And you move away from being a victim to being a player, to being someone who's powerful. Now, when you do that, okay, the only way to move from one state to the other, to move from that victim to the player, is those two words that I mentioned: accountability and responsibility for every single thing in your life. I'll give you a beautiful example. I'm not sure how many of you watch the game of tennis. And I traveled, like I said, almost 6.5 years on the ATP tennis tour and worked with numerous Grand Slam champions. And I had the opportunity to get really close and do a little bit of work with Rafa Nadal. And this was a beautiful thing that I loved about Rafa. If you watch Rafa Nadal play, you'll notice that all his fingers have tape on them. He tapes all his fingers, both hands, right? It just helps him with his grip and stuff like that. And he does that for every single practice. And what is a beautiful thing that I noticed about Rafa is that if that tape is done wrong, if it's incorrect on his fingers, he doesn't say anything when he goes to practice. And the only way he'll know that it's not feeling right is when he's holding his racket on the court and playing, which in some shape and form is already too late. But he doesn't say anything. He takes the tape off. He redoes it himself on the side of the court. And the very next day, okay, in the warm-up, he comes 30 minutes earlier to practice so that he can give the physio enough time to do it properly. You see, he's not blaming the physio for doing it incorrectly. He's taken full accountability and full responsibility. He's saying that this is not done right. And perhaps it's not done right because I didn't give the person who was doing it enough time to get it done, to do it properly and to test it. So what he does was he made a change in his life that empowered him. And that is the secret. That is the secret to success in whatever you do, right? Always ask yourself that question. What can I do to become accountable and responsible for everything in my life? And that is the recipe for greatness. Now, today I want to speak to you really about three things, actually. And they're slightly longer, slightly elaborated things. And the first one that I want to talk about with respect to our mental health is you have to understand how the brain works. Now, when you understand how the human brain works, it's a tool like any other tool. If you're making content on an iPhone or an Android device, you know how your devices work. If you're using editing software, you know how those editing softwares work. And because you're able to understand how those softwares work, you're able to create the magic that you're currently creating and show it to the world. The problem is one of the greatest tools in the human body is the brain, and most of us have absolutely no idea how it works. And this is why we are victims to mental health issues. We are victims to pressure, victims to anxiety, victims to our own emotions as well. Why? Because we've not understood how the greatest tool in the human body works. And today, I'm going to try to break it down for you in a few simple, easy steps. And if you listen to me for the next 15, 20 minutes, I'm going to give you some powerful takeaways that will shift your life in a beautiful direction. The first thing we need to know is that the human brain likes four things. The first thing that the human brain likes is it likes symmetry. It likes things that look perfectly symmetrical. And this is great from a design point of view. You see, when you create something and your sets are perfectly symmetrical, the body likes it, the brain likes it, everyone that's watching it likes it. They draw a sense of comfort from symmetry. Symmetry has also kept us alive. So when you look at a fruit or you look at a piece of food, when it's symmetrical, it's a sign of being healthy. When something is off, it's a sign that it's not well, it's ill. Illness is a sign of asymmetry. Okay, so symmetry is the first thing that the human brain likes. The second thing the human brain likes is it loves shortcuts. Most of us have seen these slides where letters are mixed up and you can still read those sentences perfectly. That's the human brain operating in shortcuts. Now, the brain is made up of two parts. There's a conscious part, which is all your thinking, and then there's a subconscious part, which is what's happening behind that you don't even have to think about. The human brain tries to move information very, very quickly from what is conscious to what is subconscious, because that conscious part of your brain is only 5%, yet it consumes 25% of the food you eat every day. 25% of the calories burnt every day is gone to just sustaining that 5% of thinking. This is why the brain is trying to automate as much as possible to keep you alive. If you have to be conscious, if you have to think about everything that happened in your body, if you have to think about your heart beating, if you have to think about how your cells function, right, you would move from eating 1,500 calories to eating 50,000 calories, because that's how much of energy you would need. So the brain is very smart. It's trying to move everything to a fast automatic zone so that you can survive and you can start doing other things. The third thing that the human brain likes is it loves stories. And this is the world that we live in, isn't it? We are all storytellers. The only way that you can remember information that's completely unrelated is if you weave a narrative to it. And that's the secret to content creation. As an influencer, you probably stumbled upon this. You probably didn't know what you're doing, but you knew that you had to do it. You had to weave an interesting narrative in, because that's what gave your audience the best chance to remember that. And the fourth thing that the human brain likes is it likes familiarity. Remember this, the word likes familiarity. And that's how these algorithms on the platforms that we use work. The more people are using a word, the more people are posting about a certain content, the algorithm starts liking it because it becomes familiar, it throws it up, and that's how something becomes viral. The human brain enjoys familiarity. In our world, we use the word trends. Trends are familiarity. Something becomes a trend because it is familiar around a larger population of the world. Right? That's how it becomes a trend. And the human brain is very, very invested in this. Now, there's something you should know about this. Think of you guys going to a Zara to buy some clothes. If you don't have anyone with you, there's a very, very high probability that you will buy a shirt or a pants or a jeans that is either the same color or the same fit as something that you have at home, right? It will fit you exactly the same. It will be the same color. The reason why you're doing this is because the human brain likes familiarity. Now, if you happen to have a friend with you, the friend will encourage you to probably try a few more things. And if they persuade you enough, you may try a different fit or buy a different color. There's a very, very important lesson in here. And the lesson is linked to what I told you, which is the fourth thing that the human brain likes. It likes familiarity, which means that if you do not have a trusted confidant next to you all the time, a coach, right, then you're going to constantly default to what is familiar. And you're going to be stuck in this rut of repeating only what you know. We all need a trusted voice on the side of us to let us know that it's okay to try something completely different. That's the secret. So every single one of you, understand what the four things that the human brain likes, but also understand that it's important for you to build a network of people that you trust, people that can push you out of your comfort zone, because that's where you grow. Now, the point that I wanted to make in point number one wasn't about what the human brain likes. It was about two areas within the human brain that are super, super important for us in terms of managing mental health. The first area is called the amygdala. It's a little bean-shaped thing. It's tiny. And that's your human brain's alarm system. It's looking for threats when threats do not even exist. If you are questioning, what am I doing? Is it worth it? What are the expectations on me? You feel like the world has too many expectations. You feel like people are treating you unfairly. You feel like no one understands you. You feel like people are not giving you opportunities. If you're having all of these thoughts happening through you, that amygdala is firing. It's working too good. That's its job. It's a PI investigator. Its job is to go and look for a problem, even if a problem does not exist. Right? That's what it's doing. So as a content creator, because we are getting our validity from the external world, that amygdala has very high probability of firing all the time. I need you to listen to me, right? We live by external validation, which means that amygdala is always making us feel like we are not worth it. We are always making us feel like we are incompetent. It's always bringing down our confidence based on these likes and based on dopamine. That is just your amygdala, and I can teach you how to switch that off. Because the other part in your brain is called your prefrontal cortex. It's right here. And the prefrontal cortex is responsible for rational decision making. It's responsible for all good judgment. So when you are feeling low and down, you can ask yourself, is what I'm feeling fair and justified? If I'm trying to say something and communicate something, you can ask yourself, am I being fair in what I'm saying? Am I being able to communicate how I feel with compassion and empathy? When you're asking yourself these healthy questions, your prefrontal cortex is working. Okay. Now, for us to manage any mental health issue, we have to switch off the amygdala and switch on the prefrontal cortex. That's the secret to life. And how do we do it? Well, there's only one way to do it. And the easiest way to do it is with your breath. Your breath is the gateway to your consciousness. You see, your exhalation stimulates the prefrontal cortex, and your inhalation stimulates that amygdala. So when people are panicked, what are they doing? They're having short, sharp breaths. They're breathing a lot more. When people are relaxed, what are they doing? They're breathing out a lot more. Breathing out stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system and that prefrontal cortex. Breathing in stimulates the sympathetic nervous system and the amygdala. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a very simple, short technique. We're going to do a breathing exercise for just 2 or 3 minutes before we move on. I'm going to teach you how to do this. Now, we're going to breathe in through the nose for 4 seconds. So you're going to go in, 2, 3, 4. I'll count you out. So in through the nose, and then you're going to go out through the mouth for 8 seconds. So you can go out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, now we're going to do this. Remember, in through the nose, out through the mouth. I'm going to play a little bit of music. I don't need you to look at me right now. All I need you to do is just close your eyes, okay, and listen to my voice. We're going to do this for just 2 or 3 minutes, and I want you to draw your awareness to how you feel during this exercise. Okay. Okay, so I want everyone to just close their eyes, sit upright. Okay, keep your back straight but not too rigid. With your eyes closed, just focus on your breath. Just feel the air moving in through the nose and out through the mouth. Don't worry about the count just yet. Just feel it go in through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose and out through the mouth. Now, just draw your awareness to how you feel. Is there any tension in your body? Are you feeling any stiffness anywhere? Just take notice of it. We're going to encourage the body to relax using our breath. We're going to try to calm every cell in our body down in the next 2 to 3 minutes. Remember, we're going to be breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. With your eyes closed, follow my count. Let us begin. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In, 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in and breathe out. With each exhalation, feel your body relax. Push away those thoughts, feel your muscles relax. Breathe in and breathe out. Feel all the tension melt away. Surrender to your breath. Allow it to guide you to a place of calm and tranquility. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. The more you surrender to your breath, the calmer you will feel. The more rejuvenated and relaxed you will feel. Enjoy this stillness, this calmness. Let this be the place that guides you to all the knowledge you need, all the answers you need. Let this be the space that opens the door to all the information that's out there that you need to guide you towards that best version of yourself. Breathe in and breathe out. With each exhalation, push away all the tension. Surrender to the calm within you. A few more breaths. Long exhalations. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. And just spend a few minutes or a few seconds just feeling the stillness in your body. Draw your awareness to how in the last 4 minutes your body's just shifted. The entire energy in your body shifted. The clarity of thought, the peace, the tranquility has shifted. I want you to know that this space of calm that you are feeling right now is within you, and you can find it at any point in time. Whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes and join me again. So thank you so much for doing a very short meditation with me. I wanted to do this exercise because I wanted to give you a tool that you can use to switch off the amygdala and switch on that prefrontal cortex. I wanted you to feel the power that you have within you. And as a person who's an influencer, as a person who's a content creator, knowing the pressure that you're faced with from the external world, it is important that you give yourself a tool that helps you reset your mind every single day. Now remember, mindfulness and meditation works best when we do it every day. And you don't need to do it for hours. You can do it for as simple as 2 or 3 minutes, like how we did it right now. And the more you do it, the more it becomes your friend. The more you trust your breath, the more you learn to surrender, the more you learn to surrender to the way the universe wants to guide you. Remember, we are going to be inundated with expectations from the world. And at a time like this, it's so important for every single one of you to trust your inner gut. Because who else can you trust? We can't trust algorithms. We can't trust other people. You have to trust yourself. And you have to learn to connect with yourself. And the only way you can connect with yourself is through your breath. So take this gift that I've given you. Use it every single day, because this will be something very, very beautiful that will help you. That's the first thing that I wanted to speak about. The second thing I wanted to talk to you about is the importance of food and mental health. Now, I'm going to give you a little example, a little story from a research paper that happened. I want you to imagine that you are sitting across the table from a perfect stranger, someone you've never seen or met in your life. Now, that stranger is sitting there, and on the table, there's a $100 bill. Okay. Now, that stranger gets to decide how much money they want to share with you. Now the stranger makes a decision. He decides that I'm going to give you only $10 and I'm going to keep 90 for myself. Now you have a decision to make. Okay. You can either choose to accept that $10, and if you choose to accept that $10, you know in your heart and in your mind, I'm getting way less than I should have got, but I'm getting a little bit. Okay. And you can walk away. And the stranger would walk away with the $90. But if you choose to reject the $10, you go with nothing and the stranger leaves with nothing. Now that's an interesting situation. And before I move on, think of yourself, what would you do? Now, there was a very beautiful, interesting research paper that happened. Right? They took various groups of students and people of various age groups actually, and they gave them breakfast. Okay. And the breakfast looked exactly the same, though it wasn't. One was a more carb-rich breakfast and one was a more protein-rich breakfast. Okay. And the research found out that those who ate more protein were more in favor of accepting the $10 and walking away with little, as opposed to rejecting it and walking away with nothing. And they repeated the study numerous times. And each time they repeated the study, people were asked to make a decision on what they would do 30 minutes after they ate food. Okay. Now, yes, there are two things we need to note here. One is that proteins and fats are very important for brain health. Very, very important for brain health. But more important than that is I would like to draw your awareness to how little time it takes before what you put in your body affects the way you make a decision. Right. Now, remember, I told you the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala are working. Now, food is also factoring into how those two work. Now, I wanted to tell you this research paper because I wanted you to become aware and become a little more conscious of the quality of food you're eating, of the quality of food that you're even recommending, right? You have to live a life that is authentic. You have to live a life that's ethical. If you don't consume something, do not propagate it to your audiences, right? If something is not good for the body, don't propagate it, because why? That is affecting the psychology, that is affecting every single person and how they function in a society. So if a society is getting degraded, it's getting degraded through our hands if we push things that are unethical. So why am I saying this? I'm saying this because remember, there's an important thing for us to know, that you are not a byproduct of the food you eat. You're a byproduct of the food your body digests. Right? And if your body digests healthy ingredients, your mind is healthy. If your mind is healthy, you can make good, rational decisions. You can make ethical decisions. You can be brave. You can be courageous. You can live a life of fulfillment. You can understand how to be true to yourself if you eat well. If you don't eat well, you're setting yourself down this very slippery slope of becoming a person you don't recognize. Now, we work in the world of social media, so we're always inundated by so many pressures and so many things that are happening at us. We are in a situation where we can very easily be manipulated to create something, right, that we're unaware of, or something that we're not happy with. Remember, we face pressures every single day that most people don't face in a month, right? Why? Because we are driven by other things, right? At that point, it's very important for you to always reset and make sure that you're living a life that's ethical, that you're living a life that's in alignment with who you are, because that's the secret to fulfillment. If you look at the world, there's so many people who are successful. Millions of people who have had all the money and all the homes, and they've traveled the world and ate the best food, but they were very, very lonely and they were very, very sad. And many of these cases ended tragically. Ended very, very tragically, where they took their own life. Right? That's the difference between success and fulfillment. You will be successful no matter what you do. Okay. But to live a life of fulfillment, you need to live a life in alignment with your core value system. And that core value system is determined by the food you eat, by the decisions you make, by the habits that you cultivate every single day. So the second point that I want you to be aware of is I want you to become mindful of the food you start eating, because that's the secret and that's the gateway to mental health. And the third point I want to tell you is I'm going to bring in a lesson from the world of sport. And I've spent 2 decades in professional sport, and this is a very beautiful story. And it's a story about the New Zealand rugby team and a particular player in that New Zealand rugby team. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the game of rugby at all. Okay. But listen up for the next 2 or 3 minutes, because it's a beautiful story with a powerful, powerful lesson at the back of it. In 2010, it was a Rugby World Cup year. And the Rugby World Cup was in New Zealand, and New Zealand were the favorites to go into that World Cup and win it. The most important position in a rugby team is called the fly-half position. And in 2010, the number one and the best fly-half in the entire world was in New Zealand, and his name was Dan Carter. So New Zealand had the best player in the most important position in the biggest tournament in their home country. You can imagine why they were favorites. But 2 test matches before the World Cup started, Dan Carter slipped and ruptured his ACL, and he was out for the entire World Cup. And the person who stepped in was a gentleman by the name of Colin Slade. Colin Slade was his apprentice, and he was going to be the first choice fly-half. So Colin played. And in the second game of the World Cup, Colin hyperextended his knee, and he was ruled out for the entire World Cup. The third choice was a gentleman by the name of Aaron Crudon, who was already a part and parcel of that team. So he slipped in to play this role. Okay. Now the coach was thinking to himself, there's no way I can go through the rest of this competition without a backup for the most important position. So he picks up the phone and he phones a gentleman by the name of Stephen Donald, who was fly fishing in the mountains. Now, New Zealand is a tiny country, and the chances of a country that size ever getting an opportunity to play the 4th choice player for the most important position in the most important tournament is more than 1 billion to 1. It would be 7-8 billion to 1. Even more than that, I would think. Right. But that's what happened. Stephen Donald was called to join the team. And the coach told him, listen, Stephen, I need you to practice every day, but the chances of you playing are slim to none. And New Zealand sailed through the prelims. They get into the quarterfinals. They win the quarterfinals. They win the semifinals. And now they're playing France in the final. In the second half, 8 minutes into the second half, Aaron Crudon falls and he's off. Okay. And the New Zealand get a penalty kick, and they don't even trust Stephen Donald to take it. So they give it to another player who misses it. And now the game is going. And New Zealand are 2 points below France, and they're only 3 minutes to go. And they get given a penalty kick. Okay, 3 minutes into extra time, which means the game is technically over. They're given a penalty kick for 3 points close to the halfway mark. And the only person in the entire team that can kick that ball is Stephen Donald, a guy who's not played a single minute in the entire World Cup. And he steps up. And as you can imagine, he's lining himself and he's going, testing the grass, looking at the wind. He runs and he kicks it. And the ball sails through the post. And New Zealand win the World Cup 8-7 against France in 2010. And Stephen Donald was a hero. Now, why am I telling you this? Because in the world of sport, we operate on a certain principle every single day. It's an unwritten rule that every athlete knows. You see, Stephen Donald knew he was never going to play. He never expected to play. But every single day, right, he would go to the field and he would practice kicking that ball, all angles. He would practice 3-4 hours at a time, every single day. Now, let me ask you a question. If you're pretty certain that an opportunity was never going to come your way, would you practice for it every day? Not too many people would, but Stephen Donald did. And most athletes do that. Okay. And the reason why we do that is because there's an unwritten rule in the world of professional sport. You see, I started off this talk by telling you how small the margin of opportunity is in my world. 100, 200ths of a second. One kick, one throw. And that's what you will be known for the rest of your life. It goes like this. Most of you create content over 5 minutes or 4 minutes or 30 seconds. You have 30 seconds to influence someone. You have 30 seconds to change someone's life, to get known, to go viral. Can you imagine if you all had to create content in 200ths of a second before you even say a word, time's done? Can you imagine if you got judged according to that? Well, in the world of sport, that's what we do. That's what makes us. But we have that unwritten rule. And that unwritten rule is there is no greater travesty. Travesty means a tragedy. There's no greater tragedy on earth than getting an opportunity you are not prepared for. This is why athletes practice every single day, because we never want to be in a situation where we get an opportunity that we are not prepared for. Right. Now, why am I saying this to you? I'm saying this to you because there are two types of people in the world. The types of people who will constantly complain about an opportunity not coming to them. And when you give them the opportunity, they're also expecting that you give them the time to prepare for it. There are no amazing stories about these people because they come and go just as quickly. No one will tell you a story about them. And then there's a second type of person who wakes up every single day and prepares and prepares and prepares. Because when an opportunity comes, he will do nothing but make sure he's in the best position to absolutely leverage it. Now, you are a creator, right? You have to live in alignment of your values, your ethics. But you need to wake up every single day saying that my opportunity in my world is going to be as brief and as small as the opportunities my athletes are facing. You have to ask yourself the question, what am I doing every single day to make sure that I am prepared to take advantage of this when the time comes? That is the third point. So thank you very, very much for listening to me. And I think I've overshot my time a little bit, but I would love to take some questions. So Subhash, Abhay, if you have any questions, please join me and I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, I think I'll keep it this way. So the first question, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah, thank you.
First question comes from Jyotsna. The pandemic has been really tough. How did you deal with it? And how do you think we will transition again once the pandemic is over?
Yes, the pandemic's been exceptionally tough because it's presented multiple situations that we weren't prepared for. And like I said, what has been tough? It's been tough in the way we interpreted the situation and the way we managed it. What has been tough is that we were unaware. And why has it been tough? It's been tough because many of us live a hyper distracted life. We were doing multiple things at once. And when life came to a standstill, we really didn't know how to manage our emotions, how to manage our time, how to manage our space. The only way to really manage it, to manage anything in life, is to manage yourself. And using those techniques that I gave you, like your breath work, like drawing your awareness to your emotions, to being able to communicate them with empathy and compassion, that's the secret to not just managing this pandemic, but managing anything that life throws at you. My acid test is always, am I in control of the words I use and the tone of voice I use, right, when I'm communicating what I'm feeling or I'm describing a situation? If you're not in control of your tone of voice or the vocabulary that you're using to describe a situation, then you need to pause. You need to take time off and you need to do a lot more work on yourself. So the only way to manage any situation, pandemic, no pandemic, any situation that comes, right, is to be in control of yourself. Worse than the pandemic for most of us is, we've seen what happened in India when TikTok got banned. It's a platform that's here today disappears tomorrow. Your entire world that you've known will disappear. Right? How are you going to manage that? Well, the secret is to understand and manage yourself first. When you manage yourself, you can manage any single situation out there. And I think how we're going to operate when we come out of this, we're going to come out in a very, very different world. We're going to come out in a world where collaboration is going to be front and center with everything. We're going to be open to collaborating. We'll be open to experimenting. We are all learning new skills. Most of you as content creators probably had a team that was helping you, but over the last 8 months, you learned how to create everything yourself. I, for one, learned how to use new platforms and record and edit and do all sorts of things. So with every threat, with every challenge comes an opportunity to grow and blossom into that best version of yourself. And I say it in my book, you cannot love yourself and you cannot heal if you hate your past, if you hate what's happened to you. So embrace all of these challenges and see that these are not challenges, but these are springboards to get you into becoming that better version of yourself.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. So our creators are really in a distress to how to discover themselves. So what's the importance of spirituality for them, and how should they start about it?
Yeah, it's a great question. Spirituality there's a massive difference between religion and spirituality. Religion is when you follow certain rules and ethics that were prescribed by someone else or by a certain book. Spirituality is the process where you learn to discover that best version of yourself and live in alignment with yourself. The reason why it's important for every creator to find that spiritual core within them is because in a world where we have external pressure pushing us in any direction, what is that thing that's anchoring you? The only thing that can anchor you is how well you know yourself. And in a world where you need to discover yourself, the secret to discovering yourself is actually research that came back from 324 BC, when the Stoics and the Romans and the Greeks were all talking about how well do you know yourself? Well, you need to know what your core value system is. Right? There's a beautiful exercise. You can do these online. It's even in my book. My book's called Breathe, Believe, Balance. I walk you through how you can discover your own core value system, because that's the value system that connects you to every person and all the work that you're doing. Okay, so once you do that, you learn yourself. So the secret to knowing yourself is to know what is the value system that you represent, because you will act in accordance with that. When you act in accordance with your value system, you become spiritually enlightened and you become fulfilled. When you act out of alignment with your core value system, then spirituality doesn't exist. You fall into bad company, you start acting unethically, and you may be successful, but you're not happy and you're not fulfilled.
Right.
So, what's the most common advice that you give to people, and they don't understand it or they're not able to act upon it? So, what's the counter advice you give them to them? So, there are a lot of people who are listening to you, but they may not be able to adapt with the advice or to act upon it. So, what's your counter? A little
You know, the
advice to
common
them.
advice, there's no counter advice. The one piece of advice that served me probably the best was, I keep saying that, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission, right? And what am I saying when I say that? I'm saying that, in asking for permission, you're waiting for validation from the external world. In asking for forgiveness, you are trusting yourself, you're building your self-worth, you're experimenting. And if you make a mistake, you're practicing humility, saying that I understand I made a mistake and I'm acknowledging it, and I'm learning and growing from it. So the piece of advice that I always give people is, instead of asking for permission, ask for forgiveness, which means start working on your self-confidence, start experiment, start failing. In the world of sport, we have a beautiful saying. It says that, the more I try, the more I fail. The more I fail, the more comfortable I become with failure. The more comfortable I become with failure, the more I try. The more I try, the more successful I am. So there's a direct relationship between trying, failing, becoming comfortable with failure, and then becoming successful. Right? So you cannot become comfortable with failure, right, if you're waiting for validation, or if you're waiting for permission to do this from someone else. Because why? The world is not very they're not very forgiving of failure. Only you can forgive yourself from failure and grow from it. So this is the advice that I give. The advice, some people listen, some people don't listen, and there's no counter advice, because the truth is that I respect that each person's on their own journey. And the one thing that everyone needs to realize is that, a change is coming. And that change can come from one of two ways. You can either listen to the wisdom and the knowledge from someone who's had an experience, or you can wait to experience it yourself. A wise person would learn from the experience of someone else. Silly person will try to learn from his own experience. And those people who try to learn from their own experience are the people who grow through pain. And you don't need to always learn everything from pain. You can learn from the wisdom that's existed in the universe. From every single organism has innate wisdom in it that we can draw from and learn. Don't be the person that needs to go from one painful incident to another to grow.
Well said.
Do you think?
So there's one question from Pankuri Bhatnagar. She is asking, can you recommend any books for mindfulness and spirituality?
Well, firstly, get my book, Breathe,
There
Breathe,
is one
Believe,
right
Balance.
behind you. There is one right behind.
Yeah, this is my book. It's called Breathe, Believe, Balance. Please get it because everything that I've spoken about is in here, including the mindfulness and breathwork techniques. And I speak a lot about subconscious programs. But there are few good books out there. If you want to talk only about mindfulness, then I would recommend reading people like Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist monk. Pema Chodron is very, very good. Matthew Ricard. These are all Buddhist monks. I would recommend a book by The Journey Within by His Holiness Radhanath Swami. These are all beautiful books that will guide you. Obviously, if you want something a little deeper, probably one of the best books out there is Paramahansa Yogananda's The Autobiography of a Yogi. Um, these are beautiful. If you want to learn a little bit about habit cultivation, read people like James Clear. I think he's written Atomic Habits. You can read a little bit of Simon Sinek. If you want to understand how to function and how to use that in our organization, people like Adam Grant have done some amazing work out there. I have tons of book recommendations, so you can go to my Instagram handle. I share them very often. You can write to me. I'll also give you more recommendations about various subjects. I talk about the body, mind, relationships, environment. So I'll give you lots of content and books and reading material with respect to that.
Yeah. So there's one other question from Angela. This is an interesting question. She says, when should one start working on mental fitness? When does one know it's high time?
It's immediate. It's immediate. I've been writing a content program for schools to teach mindfulness from as early as 4 years old. So simple mindfulness exercises, because remember, the earlier you start, the more it becomes a part and parcel of who you are. When something's a part and parcel of who you are, you can benefit, you can draw on its benefits. And remember, every single thing is a byproduct of consistency. If someone asks you, which day did you become intelligent? You can't say, oh, my intelligence birthday was this day. Which was your fitness birthday? On this day, I became fit. No, no one can pinpoint this. It's just a byproduct of being consistent every single day, going to the gym, going on a run, reading a book, journaling. It's consistent habits that eventually get you to a certain point. The same with mindfulness. Mindfulness is about being consistent with your breath work, being consistently mindful of what you're doing, how you're speaking, how you're walking, how you're talking, all of these things, where you're sleeping, how you're sleeping, all of that. It's a byproduct of consistency.
Right. So there's one other question. What more ways to connect mind and body, and what questions one should ask oneself?
The mind and the body are connected. Whether you know it, whether you don't know it, it's connected. I've explained to you how the food you eat impacts your thoughts. Your thoughts impact your cell biology. I study the psychic root cause of diseases, for example. So I study the root causes of types of cancer on certain psychological triggers. So what is a thought that a person's going through that manifests as a disease in the human body? So the interlink is completely there. The secret is really, there's no one question you should do. It's about being mindfully present. It's about sitting with yourself and asking, when I'm feeling a certain thing, right, why am I feeling this? Peel away the layers. Where did this come from? What was the incident that brought this into your life? I play with so many questions. In my book, I have a beautiful exercise. It's called the Life Blueprint exercise. The Life Blueprint exercise is just some statements that I get people to complete, and it's very things. Some things are like, life is, complete the sentence. One is, woman are. And then I ask people, what's the best compliment you've ever received? Or complete the sentence, I feel powerful when. And people have given me all sorts of things. I feel loved when. And people, and when you get an answer, for example, let's pick one. I feel powerful when people listen to me. Let's say it sounds like such a simple answer, nothing wrong with it. Okay. But you have to play with that. Why is it that powerful. I'm drawing so much of strength and power from just people listening to me. So where did that come into play? What has happened in my life where I felt that no one listened to me, that now I'm willing to attach a word like powerful to a simple thing like being heard? Being heard is just a core human necessity, that when someone speaks, they should be heard. It's a human right, but yet we've attached the word powerful like it. So when you start peeling away these layers of why things are present and the lenses through which we view the world, you become mindfully present and you start understanding the world through a completely different lens.
Yeah.
So, how to go about accepting one's emotional imbalance, which is somehow affecting one's creator content, and how to really act upon it?
Two, you have, you know, it's quite a crazy situation, as a content creator. I've always been, and I'm probably one of the worst content creators. I would go 3 months without putting anything out there. I would do something one day, and the reason why that happens to me is because I'm operating from a system where I'm always asking myself, am I speaking something that I would like to say, something that I sincerely believe? I'm constantly saying no to brand deals because I don't consume their products. I don't believe in their products. And that's what I'm saying. As a content creator, it's a very slippery slope. If you're not mindful of who you are and the messages you're giving, you're going to wake up one day and not even recognize who you are. Right? And when you can't recognize who you are, no one can help you. So it's so, I was having a conversation with someone about the other day. I said, let's talk social media. There was a movie that came out on Netflix called Social Dilemma. Every single one has watched it. I'm sure you guys have all watched it. Do you know one person, and what did that do? That highlighted the dangers of social media. It was so beautiful, the research, everything. I know 1 million people who've watched it. I don't know one person who's given up their social media handles. Right? So what is that saying? That's saying that we are so inundated that we've completely lost control of the decisions we're making and how we're doing it. Now, that's very scary, very, very scary. Because you see, the problem is, in India, we saw this thing where TikTok was there one day and TikTok was gone another day. Now, what happened with that? Let's play this out. The platform was here and then the platform went. But the ramifications of the platform on your psychology is still there. That's not gone anywhere. The loneliness, the depression, the lack of human connection, all of that is still there. So this is what we need to become mindful of. That what that is doing to us, it's called ontological conditioning. We make something and that something makes us back. So the impact of that on our lives is going to live far longer than what we are creating and where we are putting it on. And I'm not saying stop. I'm saying be mindful. Make ethical decisions.
Great. So, all right, we are at the end of the 1 hour time period. I didn't realize that, so time just flew. So it was a great, engaging topic and discussion that you brought about, and very interesting stories. I would say, Shamal, it was very engaging. I'm sure the audience have thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed it personally. Thank you so much for being here. It's such an honor.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you, sir.
inviting
Thank
me.
you.
Yeah. Thanks, Subhai. Thank you so much.
Okay, and probably sometime again we will host you as Creator OS, and we'll have all this audience coming and asking you more questions then.
Anytime. Feel free to ask, write to me whenever you want to. And thank you so much for inviting me. And I look forward to engaging more.
Sure, it's our pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.